Looks like I'm on already. All right, we are recording. Well, welcome everybody. Um, this is our second launch. See what I did there?
Yes. Second launch for the second issue. Yeah.
So we're pleased to have you join us today for the second launch of the second edition of Issued. And it's just so nice to see so many people here. We've had a number. This is one of the popular things, right? When we have Rosemary with us, she gets a crowd going. So I'm Wanda Wright. I'm the director for the Office for Military and Veteran Academic Engagement. Tonight we'll hear from veterans as they read their works that are in this journal. And we're just pleased to have people, and we're pleased that we were able to publish this. I think really, I read it front to back. It's really good, and it's got a lot of good information in it and a lot of good reading. And so now let me introduce our moderator, Rosemary Dabrowski. And just a few short words. She's the inaugural Poet Laureate of Phoenix, Arizona, the founding editor of Rinky Dink Press, the founding director of the Poetic Medicine nonprofit Revisionary Arts, and a teaching professor at Arizona State University. Yay! And I think I have like two students here, Alyssa and Alex. Are you? Yeah. Put your hands up. So we actually
Hi, students.
Awesome. And in 2023, with the support of our office at ASU, she founded Issued Stories of Service and created Verses for Vets, a poetic medicine program for veterans. So we are so pleased that she's part of our team. And welcome, Rosemary.
Thank you so much. Wow. I'll take it, Wanda. Thank you so much. That was such a beautiful and kind introduction. Most of my friends call me RD. Some of my students call me Dr. D. I expect everybody in this room to call me RD or Rosemary is fine as well. I'm so excited to be here tonight. And apparently Princess Phoenix is too, because she jumped up right on cue. I want to say before I make any other remarks that I am the granddaughter, the daughter, and the half-sister of veterans. Three of my people were in combat, including my father, who was a Korean War veteran. So when I was asked to build this journal for the Office of Veteran and Military Academic Engagement, I didn't just sort of come in as a poet and a curator of journals. I came in with a personal interest in showcasing these stories that are vastly different in each generation, vastly different from person to person. And there are clearly not enough venues for publication for these stories, given all of the writing programs that there are for veterans around the country, given all the veterans who get MFAs using their GI Bill. I think it's important for us to have these platforms to support these stories, which are really, pieces of American history. And that's something that I always like to say about this journal. When we first conceived of it, our intention was to create a platform for veterans' voices that upheld standards of craft. And that's an intersection that's helped define American literature at large. Obviously, from Walt Whitman's Civil War poetry to Yusef Komunyaka's Vietnam poetry to Anthony Swofford's Iraq memoir, we could go on and on. That intersection of craft and military experience is an enormous part of American literature. And it's also a space in which we reclaim both American history and personal history. I think those intersections are beautiful and important. And I feel like the poetry and prose that we publish in Issued carries on that tradition. And it's an honor to play a part in that. So thank you. Before I introduce all of the amazing readers, award-winning readers and writers who are here tonight, I still need to thank my team of amazing editors who helped to build and grow this journal from the inception. Some of you already heard me introduce Air Force veteran and creative writer Virgil Connor, who has been with us since 2022. Best managing editor on the planet. I'm not biased at all. Virgil was also our student worker for their final year at ASU. Our new student worker, Mike Merkel, is here eating in his book. We're so happy to have him as well. But the journal really wouldn't have been possible without Virgil. They were a literature student of mine. I knew they were a creative writer, and I immediately reached out to them and said, "Hey, have you moved? Have you moved to Arizona yet? Because I'm going to need you to help me with this project." Um, I needed a creative writer who had a veteran's perspective, and they fit the bill. And what an amazing journey we've been on. So thank you again, Virgil. Amazing job. We also had two fantastic English majors who joined our editorial staff last year, and that would be Lexi Hladek, who I know is here. Fabian Sandez may or may not be here, but big thanks to them as well. And then last but not least, we also had the amazing United States Army veteran and creative writer, Beth Leachy Johnson, with us. She came on as our community editor last year. No pay, no credit, no nothing. Just believed in the work. So thank you. Thank you, editors. This has been just an amazing project and process with you. Couldn't have done it without you. And lastly, Stacey Eastwood's not here, but I want to thank Stacey Eastwood and Wanda Wright from the Office of Veteran and Military Academic Engagement at ASU for their unflinching support of this publication, because we definitely couldn't do it without them and the support of the office. So thank you so much for believing in this. And Alexandra, I know your hand is only up because Wanda asked you to raise it, so I'm going to ignore it. You can peruse our content during the reading if you'd like. You can revisit the work that's being read tonight. All you have to do is go to our website, which is issuedjournal.com. And I will put that in the chat room in just a second. On our landing page, there's also a link to purchase additional copies of the journal if you are so interested. We have so many talented poets and prose writers, a few prose writers here tonight. And it's an honor to not only publish their work in our pages, but to meet them and hear them read live. I got to gush over most of you when you came into the Zoom room. So that was exciting for me. And let's kick it off with Anthony Albright. I'm going to read a short bio for each reader, and then you can say whatever you need to say about your pieces to contextualize them, and it'll be beautiful. Choctaw poet Dr. Anthony Albright served in the U.S. Army's 1st Special Forces Group. He holds a PhD in rhetoric, writing, and culture from North Dakota State University and currently lives in the Twin Cities metro area. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me. My first piece, I'm reading directly from the journal, so buy your copies. There you go. My first piece is a letter to my son Cole. Thankfully, neither of my kiddos are remotely interested in the military, so I don't have to worry about it. But this was sort of a thought that I had, or a thought experiment that I had, and I wrote it in poetry form. So I'll read that one first. Dear Cole, don't join the army. My son, you are too good to kill, kill, kill without mercy. You are too handsome to beat your face. You see too clearly to follow blindly. You ask too many questions to stop asking fucking questions. Dear Cole, do what makes you breathe. Inspire, acquire a fire that makes you shine. Find a special talent and use it, only choose it for yourself. Let no one else tell you to put your dreams on the shelf. Dear Cole, war is not glory. It's a gory mess of regrets, tempestuous times of flying from one place to another, not looking for a lover, but always a fight. It's not right, son, to visit the whole world, but only with a gun, son. Dear Cole, don't be cold-hearted. Don't go to places uncharted and steal their joy. Be a good boy now. Do as I say, not as I did. And maybe there'll be hope for your kids to grow up with a father, not just a ghost suit, unused cannon fodder. And thank you. My second piece is called Yup. It comes from a place of spiraling in my recovery. It comes directly from a journal I was writing while I was maybe a year and a half out of the Army. And I was living in a van. So that was fun. Meandering mind manages to hold simultaneous synchronized conceits of growing mold. We shoulder older folds in fat futile brains, useless parts pruned with age. But gracing takes a long spacer of time to arrive at anything advantageous, by which time we've derived a million new uses, a billion new lives. Is it any wonder we'll never get out alive? Not by striving, saving, or starving can we deprive fate of the moment we die. Belying our myth of survival, we tell our minds that preparing promises better odds of perpetual breath. In duress, the illusion eases the tempest of clouded mind long enough to assuage ominous nature of arduous trials, enabling us to smile at death when it comes to call and forestall inevitable trials and tests. Just guests on this planet, we gather assuming erroneously that our lives matter. Shattered perceptions come to call us back to bear. Broken reality, we shall, you'll see, bring Vidi Vici victory in the air, on land, or at sea. To be or not to be doesn't matter. You flatter yourself to believe you'll be around to see the yet inevitable end of me. Thank you.
Thank you for that amazing reading to kick us off, Anthony. It's an honor to know that Cole is your son as well. I wondered if that poem was written to an imaginary recipient or a real one. I've wondered that since the moment I read it. So thrilled to know that it has even deeper meaning than I suspected. Thank you so much. What a beautiful reading. Our next reader is Sarah Colby. Sarah Colby is a military spouse and mother to a Navy son. She holds an MFA in creative writing from UNR Tahoe, and she lives with her husband in San Antonio, Texas, where she mentors veteran and military writing groups. Sarah? Uh-oh.
Thank you so much. I'm zooming from my car because we've had a death in the family and I'm on the road. And it is so lovely to have a few minutes to do something different and to be among people who are creative and enthusiastic. The first poem is a poem about what happens in the times when you're alone after the death of a spouse, particularly one in the military. You can't turn a dead man down. I will dress you in your favorite hat and the boots I never liked, scuffed beyond polishing, worn down heels. Invite your sister to sing Amazing Grace, though she can't carry a tune in a bucket. Ask your brothers to carry the casket. Would they could lift grief from my shoulders as easily. Chisel for God and country in hollow block letters on your headstone. All that you asked, I do. And when the dark hours come, I dust shelves, sort papers, clean closets till exhaustion drives me to rest I dread. The cold sheeted bed where memory waits, boneless breath asking to lie with me in your accustomed place. A darkling invitation I will not refuse. Thank you. The second poem, titled Forensic Evidence, was written in honor of PFC Vanessa Guillen, who was murdered at Fort Hood in a really big sexual harassment situation that went wrong. And I wrote it as a cleave poem. So I invite you to go to the page so that you can read the right hand and the left hand. I'm only going to read it as a whole poem. But I would like to say that this poem, I too did not have permission. And so it's sort of reflexive even on itself in honor of this woman who was just a few hours up the road from me. Forensic Evidence for PFC Vanessa Guillen, U.S. Army. The mouth, camouflaged with dirt, can't repeat the lie, there was nothing to say, can't tell the truth about the life of the body. Instead, the body speaks, the foot in its boot, the hand in its separate grave, blistered fingers still curled and soft, faintly whorled, root of each hair in a concrete tangle, scorched and soiled. I am Vanessa, my lips no longer smiling, my skin cold over cracked bones, me alone on this sterile steel table, touched without permission, even now.
Sarah, those are both gorgeous poems, and I did share the screen so that everybody could see the cleaved format. I wasn't sure if everybody could visualize that. It's a breathtaking piece. Thank you so much for writing both of them and contributing both of them.
Thank
Such an
you.
honor.
I'll be
Thank
turning
you.
off my video, everyone, because I have to be on my way, but I'll be listening.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us despite your loss.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Our next poet is Morrow Dottle. Morrow Dottle is a former physician's assistant who served in the U.S. Air Force following 9/11. They're a pushcart nominated poet who hosts Weave and Spin, a performance and open mic series in Hillsborough featuring traditionally marginalized voices. They live with their family in Hillsborough, North Carolina. So happy to have you, Morrow.
Thank you, Rosemary. It's been really wonderful to be part of this project. And thank you so much for all your hospitality and support. It's been really, really special working with you. You're an extraordinary editor among publications. The first poem is, so as you said, I was a physician assistant in the military, which exposed me to some really incredible trauma by proxy on a pretty much daily basis. And so I always try to be really respectful with stories that I tell of other people, particularly patients, but this just really cut me to the bone. It was my first year of being a medical provider, period. So you can only imagine. The morgue. It begins with swift unease in the grocery when he sees bright, fibrous slabs of beef stuck between styrofoam and plastic wrap. Artillery sounds don't elicit a flinch, but show a porterhouse, flank, or filet mignon. He graze like raw steak where the blood has drained. After Iraq, he had a tour in the morgue for bodies back from combat. Quickly opened, viscera pushed through a grinder, the sludge packed back and sewn into the emptied skins. Some remains so deranged you couldn't skim the DNA. He cataloged possessions of each no longer on his roster. He leaves the military and becomes a minister. He never eats meat, but swallows all the fears of his faithful. He hangs them on the brittle chain of his mind, along with dog tags, wedding rings, wallet photos of children still bereaved, smiling from staged backdrops of autumn leaves. The other thing that was wonderful about being really remarkable about being a medical provider was getting to work with so many amazing young people who had come into the military for the first time, straight out of high school, who served as medical assistants. There were so many of them. They're just really delightful, sweet, really like they were teenagers. They felt like my children sometimes. And this was certainly one of them, one of my very favorites. Fernandez takes off his camo jacket, and there's his right arm. He'd spent Saturday at the tattoo shop, a grenade's throw off base, and got the skin covered, shoulder to fingertip. We could tell they were all picked from a 3-ring binder. Nothing original, nothing personal. Spiderweb and skull, dollar bills and brass knuckles, guns and pinup girls. Think manly. So much rough ink on this boy who liked his eyebrows waxed, nails manicured. In a different life, he could have been a J.C. Penney model. Open the catalog and he's headed off to college, filling his closet with preppy digs, loading the minivan with dormitory linens. Instead, a bunk on a base in rural Jersey, picked up by a recruiter probing inner city schools. Everyone laughed at Fernandez, his flimsy scheme. No one believed the tough guy act. I can still see the shine leave his eyes, but bless his heart, the next weekend he went back and did the left side. I felt so sad, wanted to say to him, "Oh, honey, don't ruin your body. Don't you know the military's going to do that for you?" And then this last one is just a personal reflection on an aspect of my experience during my time at that particular base and in the military. Expect to be deployed. Deploy. To spread out, utilize, or arrange for a deliberate purpose. That's just my epigraph definition. The first words you hear when you arrive on base refer to servitude in one of 2 places of the world that few Westerners would choose to visit. But even if you never make it to Afghanistan or Iraq, you will be used for everything you're worth. When it's finished, you'll wonder where you went. The recruiter said it was just like a job at any other clinic. Somehow you believed it. 2. When the papers come down, just the thought of going on deployment makes you wild. Helpless to protest a military order or those who fill their pockets by sanctified conflict, you turn aggressive on yourself, fantasize about what you'll do to escape the assignment. Drive your car into a lane divider, fall down some stairs and break both legs. Lift your piano and throw your back. You don't want to die, just enough hurt to prevent hurt of a much more serious kind. 3. You feel most kin with what exists at the borders of the base. Deer that appear behind the pine stand, small frogs that cling to the window. A fox occasionally shows its nose. Airmen joke about running over groundhogs that feed on roadside clover, the way their bodies explode across asphalt. When you don't laugh, they jeer, ask when you plan to hold the funeral. You came to this place to serve as healer, unacquainted with how many shades of pain live here. You had no idea you could disappear as just another color.
Tomorrow. What a treat to hear you read those poems live. I only wish I could visit your reading series in North Carolina. If I'm ever out that way, you will know in advance for sure. Yes,
If you're
we
ever
love
out
you.
that way, let me know because we will host and feature you.
Okay, I will definitely let you know in advance. In case you didn't catch it, Virgil said something in the chat room. I believe it was about Fernandez's camo jacket, the second poem that you read. That's been Virgil's favorite poems. Submissions opened, or since submissions closed for issue 2, so they wanted you to know that, I'm sure. So I'm passing the message along. Thank you so much. Amazing work. Seal Downing is here, and we are so thrilled that she made it. She'll be our next reader. Seal Downing served in the regular Army in the early 80s. She's a recipient of the Academy of American Poets Prize and was runner-up for the Elizabeth Lyons Award. Her collection of poems is entitled To Walk the North Direction. Seal, so lovely to have you.
Thank you, and my apologies for being late. I am technologically impaired sometimes. So I'm looking to read the poem Inferno, and my belief system is that it's very difficult to make it through a life without being victimized. And the other part of that belief system is that it's imperative to never make that a life definition of being a victim. So that's a little bit about what Inferno's background is. Inferno 2.0, apologies to Dante Alighieri. In the sulfurous troughs of military misogyny, I am the pilgrim Virgil wandering unknown territory. A sergeant with a whiskey lacquered tongue and absence of conscience or honor cornered me in the second circle of hell, where carnal malefactors reap whipping storms, then retreated to the third circle, where dwell those who lack self-control, arbitrarily violating oaths and trust. One day, he will reach the fifth circle, and he'll have to pay the ferryman to cross the river Styx, lest he be boiled alive for all eternity. And won't he be surprised to see the ferryman has been replaced by me? Thank you. And the other one's too long, so I'm not going to be reading it, but thank
Are
you
you
very
sure?
much.
I was just going to invite you to read it because we planned on you reading Homecoming. So if you would like to.
No, it's quite all right. It's quite long, and I did want to get the poem in there. And thank you so much, though.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for reading that. And everybody can read Seal's prose piece, which was also published and issued, called Homecoming, on the website. So I invite you to do that tonight or sometime in the near future. Such a joy to have you with us, Seal. So nice to see you again.
Thank you, and nice to hear people's voices.
Next up, we have Charlie Jacobson, also known as Charles. We published him under Charles. I hope that's okay. Charles Jacobson is an Army veteran who has an abiding interest in philosophy and the arts. He lives in Alton, Illinois, with a cat who doesn't like him. I'm so sorry about that, but I think there's other cat owners that are probably in the same camp with you.
Well, for background, this is not my combat experience. It's a combat experience of a friend of mine who's now deceased and in Vietnam from 1969 to 1970, and this is his. I wrote a memoir for him, and this is when he comes home. And this is one of the chapters of the memoir. It has what would you call it, an epilogue at the front but I'm going to not, it's a song. I'm not going to do that in the interest of time. The Army, it's bullshit, really. 2 years amid spells of senseless madness where life can be short. I took off my uniform and notified PV Company. I soon began handling all things computer at the new tech center, back working days and schooling nights, busy with responsibilities. Since returning, I had been on the lookout for enemies, strange sights, sounds, and smells. Diesel churned my stomach. I looked up every time I heard a helicopter. 4th of July was tense. Fireworks and the lingering smell of sulfur, incoming or outgoing. At first I slept well, but then I would wake up suddenly in a cold sweat, not knowing where I was, and had to change my t-shirt. The doctor suggested hypnosis. I demurred. Who knows what that might bring? I don't know you anymore. You're not the same person you used to be, my wife said. The teasing and pleasing of a new marriage was over. A space had developed between us. We were just keeping things going, it seemed. I saw this as a period of adjustment that would take its own good time. Isn't a marriage a lifetime guarantee? My parents just had their silver. My in-laws held a large family picnic over a weekend at Taylor's Falls, a picturesque favorite in Minnesota. I didn't realize that our marriage was the hot topic. A few days later, my sister-in-law Barb and her husband Steve spilled the beans. They lived in the same apartment complex as we did and kept their mouths shut and their feelings in check during the weekend, but they couldn't hold it in anymore. I know where her boyfriend lives. Interested? Said Steve. Let's go. We hopped into Steve's car. Everything made sense now. A boyfriend. She didn't answer my letters and struck out the bank account. She palmed Tammy off on her folks. Drinking, drugs, and who knows what. So obvious in retrospect. They were outside on the front stoop. I had him in my sights when Steve and I approached the house unseen and unannounced. Thoughts went through my head. I was a trained killer. I walked up to the surprised couple and addressed my wife. You just lost your kid. After a minute of stunned silence, Steve and I left. In basic, the drill sergeant taunted us with, ain't no use going home. Jody's got your girl. Drove your car and spent your money. I can attest to every word. I would have found out sooner or later, but I was grateful to Barb and Steve for sparing me the prolonged agony. We're still good friends. Steve considers me a brother. You don't hear that every day. On the way home, I heard that her boyfriend had been on the premises and slipped out the back when I surprised her on my return from Vietnam. Her lips were warm and swollen pink. For all I know, he'd been in the bedroom zipping up his fly. When she dragged herself back to our apartment, she turned her face up to me and said she screwed up. We both knew it was over, but I wasn't ready. I loved Tammy. I loved my wife. We spoke at length and resolved nothing. Her parents were angry. My mother was angry. My dad had Parkinson's and didn't say much. Some families butt in. Mine butted out. A friend of my dad's had been a court reporter and seen Kermit Gill, a no-nonsense criminal attorney, in action. Nothing fazed him except his girl Friday. He immediately opened up the possibilities. We could do this, that, and the other. See what's workable. Let me know. At home, I suggested counseling, but my wife wasn't interested. There were things said that couldn't be unsaid. She didn't want me anymore, which wounded me more than enemy fire. She wanted out. After she saw the divorce papers, she had second thoughts. Too late, I reached my saturation point. It was time to move on. I called Gil. I want Tammy. You could get child support for the little girl. The door is wide open. My mother and brother were with me at the custody hearing. Gil had prepared us for the worst. Mom had a sheaf of papers with everything she didn't like about my wife and a slew of reasons why I should get custody. My wife was a no-show. I was awarded custody before it started. The divorce was uncontested. My wife remarried and started a new family. I vowed no second act and kept Tammy close. We developed strong ties and a lifelong friendship with our former in-laws. I'm forever grateful for that. At first, Tammy was a sad little girl. Where's Mom? When my ex started her visits, they were random and rare. Her no-shows were heartbreaking. When the visits came off, Tammy would start crying after she dropped her off. Mom's not here. Here we go again. My wife dropped the bomb on me the first time I saw her. She was so ridiculously beautiful. I was infatuated. I fell in love right away. It was inconceivable that such a romance could end like this. Thoughts of her and Tammy followed me everywhere in Vietnam and kept me going. That world was gone too. Sergeant Dunnick was wrong when he said, "It done mean nothing." That's it.
Charlie, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us with that really moving piece. And I didn't know that it was about your friend, but what a gift to give him posthumously to write his story and allow it to live on. Thank you so much.
Well, that shows there are other casualties. The casualties of war are just there's a string of them. They're not.
Yes,
They don't just stop with the the experience. Okay.
right, right. It's just not the obvious things that are covered on the news, right? So much more fallout than that. And that's the quieter fallout, but just as traumatic sometimes. So thank you again for writing that piece. We only have one more prose writer tonight, and she's our next reader, and that is Daniela Mastanak-Young. Daniela is a scholar of cults, extreme groups, and extremely bad leadership, a phrase that I hear her say every day on Instagram. You should follow her. She served as an intelligence officer in the Army for 6 years with 2 deployments to Afghanistan. She holds a master's degree from the Harvard Extension School in organizational psychology and is working on her second book, The Culting of America. Daniela, it's a thrill to have you.
Thank you so much. Apparently, I forgot to mention the first book in the bio, but I was thinking about writing a book because I had grown up in one of the world's worst cults, and then I had become a captain in the Army, and I'd even done some pretty cool stuff. And I was hearing that nobody would put the cult in a major book because sexual abuse against children is too awful. And I was hearing that nobody would put the story of a military woman in a book because nobody reads them. And then Vanessa Guillen was killed. And I was sitting like in the dark in my camper, as I think we all were, right? Asking myself, why didn't America care? And I kept hearing the nobody reads them. And I thought to myself, somebody just needs to write a book and get a deal big enough that they don't have to ask the Pentagon permission to protest them. And they can show what it's really like for the daughters of America when they disappear behind the high commune walls of the Department of Defense. And then a second later, I thought, oh, that might be me. So I wrote Uncultured. It came out in 2022, and this is a chapter. Camp Followers, Fort Campbell, Kentucky, 2011. The man with the thick Texas drawl wearing the Army symbols, former combat arms guys, stitched to their ball caps to display their Army resume, addressed a gaggle of soldiers. I pulled Lieutenant Tiffany Taylor down onto the concrete floor next to me as bodies crowded around for instruction on how to wear our combat vests. It hadn't taken us long to become friends, both of us realizing the only other female lieutenant on the team would be an important companion to have during a year deployed to Afghanistan. Tiffany folded the long legs of her 6-foot, 1-inch frame under herself and arranged the rest of the gear we'd both collected as a pile of support behind us. I wonder how we'll fit all this new stuff into the 2 duffels we're allowed to bring with us, I murmured. Just leave some of your makeup behind, Miss Thing, she laughed. I'm impressed they actually issued us sports bras for war, I added. Remember how in basic training they gave the men free underwear, but we had to buy 4 sports bras for the equipment layout with our own money? She shook her head. Oh, I forgot. You went to West Point and didn't do basic training, I said. How will I ever forgive myself? I trailed off, feigning a worshipful bow, my hands raised, paying homage to the intense rivalry between West Point and officer candidate school graduates, and kissing the ring. Like most West Pointers, she was used to being mocked by officers from the lesser commissioning sources and responded as they all do, with the confident smile of those who know their worth. All right, guys, the instructor started. This is a 20-minute block of instruction on how to wear your new armored vest and carrier. Please lay the combat vest in front of you. Leaning some of my weight on Tiffany, I zoned in and out, knowing that the first several times I put the equipment on would be a disaster. Later, a sergeant would step up and square away the poor, lost second lieutenants. Sweating through layers of winter gear, my eyes started to droop closed as the stuffiness of the old warehouse set in. Scared of falling asleep in front of everyone, I shook myself and tuned back into the speaker. So the thing is, he said, holding up a heavy square plate the size of a laptop computer, rotating it lengthwise in front of his chest, and then pulling it snugly against himself. When you put your vest on, and this is mounted correctly, y'all all want to make sure that this piece of Kevlar is sitting no more than ½ an inch away from your center of mass. In a firefight, you got to protect your vital organs, and that's how. When you lose weight, which you will, because the food in the sandbox is shit, y'all need to make sure you get a new vest from Damage Exchange. This is the most important thing any of y'all will hear today. He paused briefly and stamped his foot, the universal Army gesture to command special attention. If there's too much space in between the plate that stops the bullet and your big old bellies, then the impact of the bullet hitting this here Kevlar can concuss your insides, and they'll be sending those Purple Hearts home to your families instead of pinning them on you. Y'all hearing me? The fit makes a big difference in whether you get killed by a fucking terrorist over there or not. Everyone sat up a little straighter, holding their own vests tighter, examining the distance. I didn't need to hold mine up to realize I had a problem. So did Tiffany. Excuse me, sir. I raised my hand, even though I didn't want to, knowing how this conversation would probably go. Can you explain to me how this is supposed to work for the females? He blinked 2 rounded eyes at me. Come again, LT? He drew out the letters. This here's armor, doll. It has nothing to do with your gender. You're going to want it to stop bullets, not buy you dinner. Yes, I understand the whole not wanting to get shot part, I said as I rose. But can I demonstrate one issue? I shed my fuzzy green overcoat and Army combat uniform jacket and turned to face him. Sorry. Even for a girl like me, no curves at all, I said, ignoring the tightening feeling in my chest as I drew attention to my bust. A plate like this, I pulled it tighter, is going to give a pretty wide gap between my vital organs and the Kevlar. I've got boobs, a bit of a blocking system built in here. I pivoted to the right, showing him the gap of nearly 3 inches between the plate and my midsection. The contractor scratched his head. I see what you're saying, LT, but I don't know what to tell you. I've never had a soldier whip their boobs out during a briefing, you know. He laughed, his eyes darting around the 18 men in my group. They all chuckled with him. But in all seriousness, darling, I don't think you really have to worry about it. You ladies are not going to be in combat getting shot at, now are ya? I eyed Tiffany, and we didn't need words to exchange the same questions. Why even bother lugging around a 30-pound weight if it wasn't even guaranteed to keep us alive? Did anyone even care? After a year and a half in the Army, I knew that women were an afterthought, always. Everything was designed for men, and women were considered scaled-down men, when we were considered at all. The attitude, no matter what part of the Army it came from, was, you ladies asked to be here, so don't complain about anything, ever. If a man has an issue, he can raise it, but a girl? Come on, doll. You knew what you were signing up for. As if anyone can ever know what they are signing up for when it comes to war. And war was where we were going. I'd arrived at my unit made up of 3,000 helicopter pilots and crew, and all the staff who supported them, responsible for troop movement, close air support of troops in combat, and conducting medical evacuations or body retrieval of wounded troops and fallen heroes. Not that I knew any of that. I'd be going off to war on a team whose mission I did not completely understand, to do a job I knew I only had the faintest idea how to do. I'd arrived after the unit completed all the pre-deployment training, as the intelligence soldiers and officers were all heading out on leave. While my new unit, trained up and ready, was spending time with loved ones they wouldn't see for a year, I spent my days trying to prepare myself for what a deployment environment might look like, especially for a woman. I needed to learn all the normal things a second lieutenant did, what to actually bring versus what was on the official packing list, what to do to prepare to leave the real world for a year, and what life was going to look like over there for 12 whole months. Before basic training, officer school, and even the intelligence course, men had helped prepare me for what it might be like, though always from their perspective. I'm sure they'd thought, like everyone else seemed to, that men's and women's experiences in uniform were identical, or at least parallel. I was finding out how wrong that was. I needed to know if I would have access to tampons, what our facilities would look like, what security would look like. What did I need to know to keep myself safe? Was there anything I could do to keep the gossips from whispering about me, whispers that could affect my career? How could I hold up under the mental stress of being one of so few? I took to Google, hoping to find tips, stories, anything that could teach me what to expect. There wasn't much, except the suggestion to bring colorful underwear and nail polish to paint the toes. The only color besides variations of brown and tan I'd likely see in a year. Self-care items for my eyes only, to help me feel like a girl in the sandbox. Mostly, I'd found other women expressing the same crushing lack of community that I already felt, and warning how amplified it would become downrange. I wasn't prepared for the vitriol. The vet bros who'd served a tour or two spewed words that should have been unspeakable at anyone who dared to suggest women might be capable of serving in combat. Their arguments were always some version of men are the best, down with all the rest, that quickly devolved into somebody should rape you to put you in your place. Rape threats also came from men still in uniform, their identities conveniently masked by social media handles. I found myself horrified by how many of these men, the ones who were supposed to be my battle buddies, shared these same heinous beliefs. I wondered which of them were behind usernames just like these. It wasn't just the men. I suppose I shouldn't have been surprised that women who have never been in the military look down on those who serve, but I was. I had always thought we weren't that different. We were all just women who'd picked one job over another, selected a career we thought would appeal to us, but they expressed how we were overly masculine, traitors to our gender. Some of the military wives, women whose husbands I might be serving alongside, called us hussies, whores, dyke bitches, and camp followers. Just like armies have always had camp followers as they go off to war, the US Army has blonde lieutenants, read one comment online. I'm just lucky my husband's a combat guy, so he doesn't have to work with any of those dangerous sluts. Buried underneath were the warnings. Be careful. Be aware. Have a buddy. Don't walk alone. Most people are raped by someone they know, but have a buddy anyway. Maybe you'll get lucky. Maybe you'll choose the right, big, tall, scary-looking guy to keep you safe. And maybe he will choose to do so. And even more blatant, don't get raped. Just don't get raped. As though it were that simple. As though it was something we could control. According to the Department of Defense's own numbers, my odds of being sexually assaulted were 1 in 4, and those were just the numbers that had been reported. Don't go anywhere without your rifle. Never mind that they'll have them too, and be better trained to use them. Keep your head down. Don't draw attention to yourself. And whatever you do not question the system that makes it that way. My boss threw a magazine in my lap one day when we sat around the office with everything packed, counting down the days and hours until we got on the aircraft to leave. Here, read this, he said. Let me know if you have any questions. The article was about the sexual assault of women in uniform, how dangerous it was for those deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. Words like rape alley jumped off the pages. Numbers swam in front of my eyes, forming word problems as though there would be a test later. If approximately 150 women have died in Iraq, Afghanistan, but 100 of them were non-combat related, what percentage of deaths were from sudden illness, murder, rape, suicide, suspicious accident? My hand slowly came up to cover my mouth as I realized he was trying to prepare me for a hazard of duty that would only apply amongst those on my team to me. Don't get raped. Don't get raped. Don't get yourself raped. Thank you.
Such a powerful piece, Daniela, and just knitting away through the whole thing like you do on TikTok and Instagram. You're a wonder, you're a force, and what an honor to have you amongst us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I did end up going on to combat teams, and I also did knit in Afghanistan.
Yes. That's my favorite thing about you. But what a brilliant piece of writing. Thank you so much. If you're interested in reading more of Danielle's work, which I am, Daniela's work, it is Uncultured. You could see it right there behind her. Order yourself a copy tonight. That is the longest piece in Issued, and it is really fantastic. And again, one of our most important. So thank you so much. Suzanne Simmons is our next reader. Suzanne Simmons is a professor emerita at the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington, where she taught poetry, Middle East studies, and journalism. As a result of 9/11 and her time in the Arab Middle East, Suzanne shifted from award-winning journalism to poetry, earning a midlife MFA from Sierra Nevada College. Her oldest son is a veteran who served as an MP in the Marine Corps and later as a paratrooper in the U.S. Army. Suzanne, welcome. So happy to have you.
Thank you, Rosemary. It's Simons, and so grateful to have my work included and Issued. And
my apology. Thank you for correcting. Suzanne
no
Simon.
No worries. My poem is called A Son's First Week of Combat Deployment. And it starts with an epigraph by Adrian Rich. War is an absolute failure of imagination. Night number 2. A ragged blanket of a 5,000 troop buildup, airstrikes, TBI casualties cover me like patchwork. Night number 3. A phone call startles me awake. A familiar voice tries to comfort both of us. Hey, Mom, I'm in Baghdad waiting for my assignment. Soldiers are here from all over, Australia, England, Poland, as if my son is at summer camp. I don't know what to say. How are you? Inadequate. He asks for phone numbers, his dad's, grandmother's, not his brother's. Morning number 4. Gnawing on what I wished I'd said. Call your brother. He needs to hear from you. No way to reach my son on the one-way line from Baghdad. Night number 4. I feel too exposed in my master bedroom with doors to the outside, windows like mirrors, a ceiling reaching to heaven. So I move back to the old modest bedroom where my sons were conceived, between snug walls, bird songs, and stars like I saw over Babylon. Night number 5. I send an email to a few close friends, less triggering than face-to-face repeating news of my son and the few details I know. I resist making military language commonplace. Instead, he's been sent to, stationed in, had a change of address. I say to my friends, don't tell me about troop movements or ask me how I'm doing. I'll let you know when I feel like talking. Night number 6. My son was born with an itch for excitement. He knew to pull back from danger just in time, like when he toddled full speed out to the edge of a broken dock in the dark, halting right before the bone-breaking drop-off to the sea. In our faith community, while the adults sat quietly in a prayer circle, this wild child and a buddy ran around whooping and hollering. There was no stopping them. That friend had his legs blown off in Afghanistan. Last fall, my son graduated from airborne school. So thrilled, he called me, talked at length of jumping out of airplanes into utter darkness, how afraid he was that first time, which is how I feel now. Night number 7. There's a difference between worry and prayer. On a good night, I hold my sons, all soldiers, civilians, Iraqi, Iranian, American, all sides in prayers for peace. On nights when I feel the air crackle or am assaulted by a teaser for the 11 o'clock news on the latest missiles and casualties, I burn drops of cedar oil, inhale deeply, practice relaxing my eyelids, unclenching my jaw that will be tight again by morning. Faith and fear cannot coexist, but they do lie side by side, wrestling to take turns on who will stand vigilant all these tense nights. Thank you.
Suzanne, it's a beautiful piece. Thank you so much for sending it to us and for representing the mother's perspective, which I think is so crucial in telling the stories of combat. Thank you. Such a beautiful piece. Tanya Souther is our next reader. Tanya Souther is an Air Force veteran, a former news writer as well, and an award-winning poet whose chapbook is entitled On the Brink. She lives in Georgetown, Texas, and teaches various English classes at Austin Community College. She was also part of our inaugural issue of Issued, so it's a thrill to have her back this year. Tanya.
I knew that was going to happen. Thank you, RD. It's such an honor to be here and to be published again by your incredible journal. Congratulations on this beautiful journal. Congratulations to you and the Office of Veteran and Military Academic Engagement. I have one poem in this issue. It's titled, Why Would I Ever Throw It Out? A little context, I guess. I was in the Air Force in the 80s, but this poem is a reflection on some trauma I experienced shortly before I joined the Air Force. And I guess that's all the context you need. It was before the Air Force. So why would I ever throw it out? Broken face, matted hair, me propped up on a gurney. Someone once told me trauma lives in the body. It sits and waits in a throne in the corner of a cold room in a robe that fades with every wash. My mother washed and dried her hair before rushing to the ER to see me. Her face flushed with makeup. I remember how she looked when she got there, how she smelled like patchouli, like the last party she threw. The fluorescent lights of the ER brought out her eyes, her smile, her warmth, like these pink fuzzies that warm my shoulders at 3 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that piece. So relevant to so many of us around the world today. Thank you. Extraordinary. And for those of you who came in late, I'm so happy that you're still getting to catch some of our spectacular poets. We have 2 more who are going to be sharing their work with us tonight. And the next one is Jay Villanueva. I'm not sure he's here because he was not here when I started the program. And it looks like he may not be here now. So that means we're going to wrap up the evening with Nestor Walters. Jay Villanueva's work can be found on our website and in our print edition. But let me introduce our final reader, Nestor Walters. Nestor was born in Bangladesh, raised in Greece, and served 10 years in the US Navy. He now studies applied mathematics as a graduate student at Stanford University. Honor to have you, Nestor.
Thank you, RD. That should be updated because I've since graduated, so I'm now on to other
Excellent.
things.
I feel like you've also been editing something over at Stanford, haven't you? I've read a lot of your work online, journalistic work as well.
I wrote for the Stanford Daily for a while.
There you
and
go.
I'm not sure if this was out when I submitted my poems, but I also had a book published. A novel,
Congratulations.
the
That's
eulogy.
wonderful. Congratulations on graduating and on the publication.
This novel. But thank you. I also want to say thanks. I don't think we could have had a better curator or presenter for our work today. Your energy is incredible. And it's going to be really hard to follow some of those readers. But I have 3 poems that I will read. And the first one is called Some Days, and it's one of the earlier poems that I wrote. You're not a poet, the voice says. Go back to bed. A real poet doesn't slip into a sleep-hold sleeping bag he got in the Navy, stare at an empty page on the table, scrape dried food, pick his nose with the same finger, sit there like that, listening to falling drops in the quiet after rainstorm, and the couple making love at dawn, or maybe it's sloppy running, while still picking his nose. He'd never need to cover his bookshelf with a blanket to avoid distractions, to look for poems in glass smudges, in the sonnet collection she left him before she left, or in the notes on the envelope from his overdue mortgage. He'd never have to guard his notebook from a storm, his secret little diary, hunched over to scrawl, a bicycle locked to a mossy fence, weed stalks shining with crystal dew, clouds that are going to rain all day, and maybe the next. Some days are like this. You've overslept, spent all morning on a poem, Find all you did was copy an old journal entry, and last year's dream isn't that interesting after all. Your walk ends with no revelations. Your shoes soak through, the sky stays gray. No matter how hard you try, raindrops smear the page you promised you would turn. Still, you come home, shower, eat a bowl of cold oatmeal. Then, sleeping bag over shoulders, sit to copy notes of a bicycle chained to a mossy fence, weed stalks shining with crystal dew, clouds that will rain all day, and maybe the next. My second poem is called The Husband Who Came Back from the War. And I should say that this was written as a response to a very good short story by Tina Connolly called A Sharp Breath of Birds. In a story about two women who grow up together playing make-believe birds, who play bird bandits, princesses, dove maidens, sea nightingales, and seven sparrows, that is who he is, the husband who came back from the war. The women, yearning to be free, blossom with scarlet and crimson wings. They fly, while he, husband, back from war. The husband who came back from the war, as if by those 8 words, we can guess his favorite chew brand or his mother's favorite flower, if he even has a mother, this husband who came back from the war. Who cares where he hid his first dirty mag, what initials he once tenderly carved, or when he first realized it hurt to cry? Because he keeps to himself, this husband, that easy dismissal, the subtle wink, back from war, you know. He saw some shit, has a 1,000-yard stare, jumps at broken plates, shadows, backfired motors, or wakes up screaming night after bottomless night, reaching for a rifle that is never there. His stories begin with, there I was, knee-deep in grenade pins, or he's in a wheelchair, or a brothel, or on a shrimp boat screaming, is that all you got? To a perfect storm. The husband who came back from the war, the wife who grew wings and flew away. And then, you know, a scalpel from his med bag on the bathtub ledge, his blood a Rorschach smeared on the floor. A pill bottle, orange and opaque, empty next to an empty handle. Or he tastes the carbon of a well-oiled pistol, or a Jeep with a roll cage revs in a closed garage with him, the husband, in the driver's seat. For the last time, it will hurt to cry. But in this movie, the scalpel breaks. In this one, the bullet half strikes. The engine runs out of gas, sputters, and dies. He vomits up the pills and whiskey, stares at them, the Lucky Charms floating in his bile on the carpet. He closes his eyes. He wakes up in pale blue light, a sunlit morning, not the far end of a tunnel. He pulls weeds from his garden, one by one, finds himself. Proud of the small victory, he plants geraniums, daffodils, daisies, decides he wants to watch them grow. He goes to therapy, where husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters, back from the war, tell him he doesn't have to be alone anymore. Maybe he dates a guy. Maybe he starts raising organic marijuana, or goes back to school, studies botany, herpetology, basket weaving. Maybe he writes a poem. Maybe he builds a bird bath in his garden. My last poem is called 5 Ways to Kill a Mouse, and I don't know what to say about it.
I can tell you we had a lot of interesting discussions on the editorial board. So that's all the prefacing anyone's going to need. Sing us out of here, Nestor.
5 ways to kill a mouse. We burned the one in the sticky trap. It struggled against its tiny legs, writhing flames fluttering like cloth in a strong wind. I didn't tell her this, the girl on my dorm room couch. I said, they were eating our food, you know. But you tortured them, she said. I told her we lived in a shelled-out schoolhouse and woke up to machine guns pattering the roof. That's different, she said. Before, you said you tortured mice on deployment. I nodded but stayed quiet. One we drowned in a water bottle trap. I showed her on the wine where we cut the plastic cone to fold inside, so it would crawl after the bait but find no way out. One time, she said, I rescued a hummingbird from my cat. Another one we kept as a pet for some time, on a leash of gutted paracord, until someone got bored and swung it in wide circles. It survived, poor bastard. We smashed it into walls, floors, the rusted dump truck, each other. Did you enjoy it? She asked. You have to understand, I told her. They were eating our food. Not that we would starve, but it was hot and they were shooting at us. And some days you came back, if you came back at all, to find chew holes scragged in your favorite MRE, in boxes and bags, socks and t-shirts, pictures sent by your sweetheart. Nothing was safe. And we hated MREs. Nobody hates MREs more than deployed Marines. But we hated having them taken away even more. One of them we crushed. He was lucky. 2 gurgling breaths and he was gone. The last one was near the end. We were packing boxes in the command center, the one classroom in the shelled-out schoolhouse with the most walls intact. Someone saw him and slid a box across the floor. He was stunned but still alive. Someone bet $50 I wouldn't bite his head off. Someone else, another 25. I probably could have made more. I set the skull in my teeth. The body pulled away gently. Nothing ragged or gushed out. I was surprised by how easy it was.
I'm not going to say beautiful piece right after that one, but it's an extraordinary piece. I'm a big fan of All Quiet on the Western Front, and anybody who's read that knows that rats factor into just about any military story. So I love the way that you rendered that poetically. Thank you so much for all of those poems, Nestor. And thank you again to our amazing editorial staff. Virgil, Beth, Lexi are all here tonight. What an amazing team we have had and hopefully will continue to have. I think everybody might be coming back this year. I'm not entirely sure, but fingers crossed. I think we all enjoyed the journey immensely and we do the job with so much pride for craft and for these stories and for your vulnerability in sharing them. Thank you again to the Office of Veteran and Military Academic Engagement. Wanda, we couldn't do this without your support. It's such an honor to curate this journal that's not only defined by its well-crafted writing, but also the stories housed within its pages. Here it is again. This is the close-up of a mural that exists in Phoenix that was done by arguably one of the famous muralists in the Southwest, Backpack. You can actually find a poem by her as well in these pages. I believe that both of the journals are for sale. If you go to our website, our landing page now has the link for purchasing right at the bottom. So feel free, if people have been asking you for a copy, just send them to our website and the homepage will take them right to that purchasing link. Thank you again so much for joining me and all of the Issued family for this launch tonight. I know for some of us, school just started. It may not have been the most convenient time of the year. We're all still trying to adjust ourselves, but what a special night this has been. Extraordinary writing. Thank you so much. Thank you. And submissions will be open again soon. So
Rosemary, we still have to give away our book.
oh, that's right.
So,
We did a raffle
yes.
tonight. So someone's
So,
getting a free copy. Are they getting both?
yes.
Maybe not, but I think they should.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we have them. If we do, we can do that.
Okay, I think we still have some of issue 1, which is also awesome.
Yes. So Brad, what do we got?
Okay, I think I just hit share screen and I can do it. Give me 1 second. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be
Okay, we're gonna
anticlimactic if this person has already dipped, but
spin
let's
away.
go. I love people who can do cool things like this with technology. Thank you.
Sarah C.
Sarah.
Can you guys hear it? Can you hear that?
Yes, we can
No?
hear it.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I can't hear the clapping. Well,
Oh yeah, there
Sarah
was
will
clapping
be-
and fireworks.
Oh, no, we didn't hear that.
Oh, I could see them, but maybe it's for the best we couldn't hear the fireworks. Anyway, Sarah is the one who had to leave early because she's actually at her father's funeral. So she joined us for the first third of the reading, and I guess we'll just follow up with her via email and let her know. And that's wonderful news because I know a lot of you have been emailing our inbox asking how you can buy additional copies. If for some reason you didn't get your contributor copy, please email us at our issued Gmail account. If you did get your contributor copies and you just want more, go to our website and the link for purchasing is there. Thank you again. This was such an amazing night for me. I was desperate to meet all the poets and hear them read live. Also desperate to meet Daniela, thrilled to meet Charles. It's just a really special issue with so many talented writers in it. So again, thank you for sharing your histories, your vulnerabilities with us. I couldn't be more grateful.
Thanks to you, Rosemary, for having us put this together. And to remind everyone, in the chat is also the website for the issued journal, and you can buy it right there. So if you want to go back up there to take a look, Brad Hoffman sent it to everyone. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Well,
Look for
Rosemary,
our
you
call.
did a fabulous job.
Thank you so much.
You really
Thank you.
did. You made everything so
you.
easy
Thank
and
you.
precise and everything, you know.
Thank you so much. Curating is definitely my passion. It's
I
right up
know
there with
from
teaching for me. I don't get enough of my work out there because I'm usually curating and teaching, but that's what I really love to do. So
well,
thank you
if
so
anyone's
much.
ever gone to an art opening, you know, the curator is really big, you know.
Well, the artists wouldn't get their work out there otherwise, right? I mean, somebody's got to be the curator. Poets are notorious for not self-promoting. We're all just really bad at it. Even when we have a book come out, you know, we're lucky if we get, 20 people at our book launch. We forget to tell people. We don't really share it on social media. My partner who runs Rinky Dink Press with me still teases me to this day because I won a chapbook contest like a million years ago in 2017. He's like, you do remember that you never launched that book, right? I'm like, oh, I remember. I remember, and I didn't really care. And that's horrible. It's horrible. But sometimes, again, I really believe that writers need people to help them promote their work. And I know that from personal experience. And I know that from working with like hundreds of students who are creative writers over the last 25 years. We're all really bad at it. So thankfully, ASU has, sort of allowed me to create these platforms. And then I've also created some independent ones. And I run a journal for the University of Arizona Medical School as well. So it's kind of what I do. I run the medical journal over there. I run the veterans journal at ASU. And then Rinky Dink Press is my own press. It's just poetry. So So check it out. If you're a poet, especially, our submissions just closed for this year, but we're open. I believe it's June and July every year. So if you want to dip your toes into the world of micro poetry, that is what we do. We publish tiny collections this size
Really small.
of micro poetry. So would love to see all of you in the inbox at some point. But again, we're going to open up submissions for issued in just a couple of weeks. Michael and I will be sending out the call to everyone. We don't really have any rules about, not submitting again. I don't think that that's really that important. We just want to publish great work every year. So if the spirit moves you to submit again, please do. And any of you can reach out to us at any time via the issued email and or that poetry PhD one that you probably thought was suspicious. That's me. So you can always email me there. Michael's the one who's really in the Gmail account right now. He texts me the other day, RD, a lot of these emails seem like they're addressed to just you. And should I answer those? I was like, no, just leave those. So hopefully I will hear from some of you again in the future. Thank you, everybody, so much.